Snow Crash, Chapter 28. Hero hangs up and walks into the next room. The librarian follows. The new room is about 50 feet on a side. The center of the space is occupied by three large artifacts, or rather, three-dimensional renderings of artifacts. In the center is a thick slab of baked clay, hanging in space, about the size of a coffee table and about a foot thick. Hero suspects that it's a magnified rendering of a smaller object. The broad surfaces of the slab are entirely covered with angular writing that Hero recognizes as cuneiform. Around the edges are rounded, parallel depressions that appear to have been made by fingers as they shaped the slab. To the right of the slab is a wooden pole with branches on top, sort of a stylized tree. To the left of the slab is an 8-foot-high obelisk, also covered with cuneiform, with a bas-relief figure chiseled into the top. The room is filled with a three-dimensional constellation of hypercards, hanging weightlessly in the air. It looks like a high-speed photograph of a blizzard in progress. In some places, the hypercards are placed in precise geometric patterns, like atoms in a crystal. In other places, whole stacks of them are clumped together. Drifts of them have accumulated in the corners, as though Lagos tossed them away when he was finished. Hero finds that his avatar can walk right through the hypercards without disturbing the arrangement. It is, in fact, the three-dimensional counterpart of a messy desktop, all the trash still remaining wherever Lagos left it. The cloud of hypercards extends to every corner of the 50 by 50 foot space, and from floor level all the way up to about 8 feet, which is about as high as Lagos' avatar could reach. How many hypercards are in here? 10,463, the librarian says. Yeah, I don't really have time to go through them, Hero says. Can you give me some idea of what Lagos was working on here? Well, I can read back the names of all the cards if you'd like. Lagos grouped them into 4 broad categories: biblical studies, Sumerian studies, neurolinguistic studies, and intel gathered on L. Bob Rife. Without going into that kind of detail, what did Lagos have on his mind? What was he getting at? What do I look like? A psychologist? The librarian says. I can't answer those kinds of questions. Okay, let me try it again. How does this stuff connect, if at all, to the subject of viruses? The connections are elaborate. Summarizing them would require both creativity and discretion. As a mechanical entity, I have neither. Ugh. Alright, how old is this stuff? Hero says, gesturing to the 3 artifacts. The clay envelope is Sumerian. It's from the 3rd millennium BC, and it was dug up from the city of Eridu in southern Iraq. The black stele, or obelisk, is the Code of Hammurabi, which dates from about 1750 BC. The tree-like structure is a Yahwistic cult totem from Palestine. It's called an Asherah. It's from about 900 BC. Did you call that slab an envelope? Yes. It has a smaller clay slab wrapped up inside of it. This was how the Sumerians made tamper-proof documents. All these things are in a museum somewhere, I take it? The Asherah and the Code of Hammurabi are in museums. The clay envelope is in the personal collection of L. Bob Rife. L. Bob Rife is obviously interested in this stuff. Rife Bible College, which he founded, has the richest archaeology department in the world. They've been conducting a dig in Eridu, which was the cult center of a Sumerian god named Enki. Okay. How are these things related to each other? The librarian raises his eyebrows. I'm sorry? Well, let's try process of elimination. Do you know why Lagos found Sumerian writings interesting, as opposed to, say, Greek or Egyptian? Egypt was a civilization of stone. They made their art and architecture of stone, so it lasts forever. But you can't write on stone. So they invented papyrus and wrote on that. But papyrus is perishable. So even though their art and architecture have survived, their written records, their data, has largely disappeared. Well, what about all those hieroglyphic inscriptions? Bumper stickers, Lagos called them. Corrupt political speech. They had an unfortunate tendency to write inscriptions praising their own military victories before the battles had actually taken place. And Sumer is different? Sumer was a civilization of clay. They made their buildings of it and wrote on it too. Their statues were of gypsum, which dissolves in water, so the buildings and statues have since fallen apart under the elements. But the clay tablets were either baked or else buried in jars, so all the data of the Sumerians has survived. Egypt left a legacy of art and architecture. Sumer's legacy is its megabytes. How many megabytes? As many as archaeologists bothered to dig up. The Sumerians wrote on everything. When they built a building, they would write in cuneiform on every brick. When the buildings fell down, these bricks would remain, scattered across the desert. In the Quran, the angels who are sent to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah say, "We are sent forth to a wicked nation, so that we may bring down on them a shower of clay stones, marked by your Lord for the destruction of the sinful." Lagos found this interesting, this promiscuous dispersal of information, written on a medium that lasts forever. He spoke of pollen blowing in the wind. I gather that this was some kind of analogy. Yeah, it was. Tell me, has the inscription on this clay envelope been translated? Yes. It is a warning. It says, "This envelope contains the Namshub of Enki." Well, I know what a Namshub is. What is the Namshub of Enki? The librarian stares off into the distance and clears his throat dramatically. Once upon a time, there was no snake, there was no scorpion. There was no hyena, there was no lion. There was no wild dog, no wolf. There was no fear, no terror. Man had no rival. In those days, the land Shubur Hamazi, harmony-tongued Sumer, the great land of the May of princeship. Uri, the land having all that is appropriate. The land Martu, resting in security. The whole universe, the people well cared for. To Enlil in one tongue gave speech. Then the Lord defiant, the Prince defiant, the King defiant. Enki, the Lord of abundance, whose commands are trustworthy. The Lord of wisdom, who scans the land. The leader of the gods. The Lord of Eridu, endowed with wisdom. Changed the speech in their mouths. Put contention into the speech of man that had been won. That is Kramer's translation. Whew, that's a story, Hero says. I thought a Namshub was an incantation. The Namshub of Enki is both a story and an incantation, the librarian says. A self-fulfilling fiction. Lagos believed that in its original form, which this translation only hints at, it actually did what it describes. You mean, change the speech in men's mouths? Yes, the librarian says. This is a Babel story, isn't it? Hero says. Everyone was speaking the same language, and then Enki changed their speech so they could no longer understand each other. This must be the basis for the Tower of Babel stuff in the Bible. This room contains a number of cards tracing that connection, the librarian says. You mentioned before that at one point everyone spoke Sumerian. Then, nobody did. It just vanished, like the dinosaurs. And there's no genocide to explain how that happened. Which is consistent with the Tower of Babel story and the Namshub of Enki. Did Lagos think that Babel really happened? He was sure of it. He was quite concerned about the vast number of human languages. He felt there were simply too many of them. How many? Tens of thousands. In many parts of the world, you will find people of the same ethnic group living a few miles apart in similar valleys under similar conditions, speaking languages that have absolutely nothing in common with each other. This sort of thing is not an oddity. It is ubiquitous. Many linguists have tried to understand Babel, the question of why human language tends to fragment, rather than converging on a common tongue. Has anyone come up with an answer yet? The question is difficult and profound. the librarian says. Lagos had a theory. Yes? He believed that Babel was an actual historical event, that had happened in a particular time and place, coinciding with the disappearance of the Sumerian language. That, prior to Babel Infocalypse, languages tended to converge, and that afterward, languages have always had an innate tendency to diverge and become mutually incomprehensible. That this tendency is, as he put it, coiled like a serpent around the human brainstem. The only thing that could explain that is... Hero stops, not wanting to say it. Yes? The librarian says. If there was some phenomenon that moved through the population, altering their minds in such a way that they couldn't process the Sumerian language anymore, kind of in the same way that a virus moves from one computer to another, damaging each computer in the same way, coiling around the brainstem. Lagos devoted much time and effort to this idea, the librarian says. He felt that the Namshub of Enki was a neurolinguistic virus. And that this Enki character was a real personage? Possibly. And that Enki invented this virus and spread it throughout Sumer, using tablets like this one? Yes. A tablet has been discovered containing a letter to Enki, in which the writer complains about it. A letter to a god? Yes. It is from Sin Samu, the scribe. He begins by praising Enki and emphasizing his devotion to him. Then he complains. Like a young, line broken, I am paralyzed at the wrist. Like a wagon on the road when its yoke has split, I stand immobile on the road. I lay on a bed called Oh, and oh no! I let out a wail. My graceful figure is stretched neck to ground. I am paralyzed of foot. My blank has been carried off into the earth. My frame has changed. At night, I cannot sleep. My strength has been struck down. My life is ebbing away. The bright day is made a dark day for me. I have slipped into my own grave. I, a writer who knows many things, am made a fool. My hand has stopped writing. There is no talk in my mouth. After more description of his woes, the scribe ends with, My God, it is you I fear. I have written you a letter. Please take pity on me. The heart of my God, have it given back to me.